Hi guys, Freddy here. Welcome back to another rules breakdown, and this time I'm going to be looking at this, Castle Falkenstein, which came out in 1994 from our Talsorian games. Now, I have been corrected in my pronunciation by a few people, telling me that it should be pronounced Castle Falkenstein. But I'm not going to do that. I am not going to learn, I'm too stuck in my ways, as I still call it Frankenstein and Frankenstein's monster rather than Frankenstein. It feels a bit ridiculous to change the pronunciation. Now, usually in rules breakdowns, down below me, I have a dice roller. But Castle Falkenstein does not use dice, it uses playing cards. So I have found this random generator on calculatorsoup.com, which will produce a number of playing cards of my need. And I've opened up two of them because I need a hand of playing cards for the player and for the games master. Now, this will work, but it's not perfect, and I wouldn't recommend using it in play, because the cards you need in Castle Falkenstein include the jokers, and these generators do not produce jokers. But for reference, the jokers are counted as being 1 point higher than an ace, so 14 points in the game. And they are of whatever face you need, whether you need a heart or a diamond or whatever, they are counted as being that. Now, usually in these, I find a pre-generated character or an NPC, and Castle Falkenstein has a number of NPCs from the era. Now, what I really wanted to do was go on here and pit Karl Marx here against Queen Victoria, as I thought that'd be quite funny to be doing a combat between the two of those. But alas, neither of them actually have any attack skills, so they couldn't do that. They could only default, which is using skills as an average level, and I didn't want to do that. I wanted to actually have a character with some skills, so for this time I'm going to be using the first one on the page, which happens to be Abraham Lincoln. So we'll be having Abraham Lincoln attacking a doppelganger of himself. But anyway, let's have a look at the rules of Castle Falkenstein. And so skills. Well, skills are based on these suites of playing cards. If we go to page 159, which is a chunk of the way through the book, so let's skip there now, we can see typical New European abilities. Abilities are the skills of Castle Falkenstein. So we see we've got athletics, which is based on clubs. Charisma, hearts. Comeliness, hearts. Connections, spades. Courage, hearts. Education, diamonds. And they're kind of clustered together like that, but we shall see more about that in a second. Now, in this example, we're only going to be using two skills. We're going to be using athletics, which is a club, and fisticuffs, which is a club. But that's just for the sake of this. If you're using other skills, obviously you'll need other faces of cards. Now, first of all, we go to page 181, which explains everything. So we need to draw a fortune deck. So we need 4 cards. So 4 cards for the player, and 4 cards for the games master. Oh, this doesn't bode well for the player. So, the player's going to be doing something athletics related, as we said. So, if we go over a page, we can see the ability face values, which we will come back to in a second. We can see the ability suit values. So hearts are emotional and romantic activities, diamonds are mental and intellectual activities, clubs are physical activities, spades are social and status related activities. And a further page on 183, we have typical heroic feats, and we start off with athletics, and we have a leap a yawning chasm, which requires a good. So going back to 182, we can see a good is a 6. So the Games Master has 6 already. Now, the player is going to be rolling their athletics. So if we have a look at their character sheet, we can see Abraham Lincoln has an athletics of average. So, going back here, average is 4. So the player's got 4 and the Games Master's got 6 already. Now, the player's looking for clubs. If he had any clubs, he could add them directly to his value. So if that 5 was a 5 of clubs, he could add 5 to it. But all of these aren't, so they only count as 1. It doesn't matter what the face value is. So he adds 4. So he's up to 8. Now the Games Master has much higher cards here, especially clubs. Now the way this works is your cards count up. So you have 9, 10, Jack, Queen, King, Ace, Joker. So, your Jack is worth 11, Queen is worth 12, King is worth 13, Ace is worth 14, and your Joker's worth 15. So, the character has a Queen here, so that's a 13, a 10, so 23, a 5, so 28, and that 6 is just worth 1, so 29, plus their 6, so they have 35 total. However, that Queen is quite good, and the Games Master knows the player doesn't have much of anything, so the Games Master might decide to keep some cards back, especially if he had high cards of another face, because they only count as 1 in this task. But if you had something like an ace of diamonds, it might be worth hanging on to that to use in a later ability test, so you get higher in that. But for this example, we're just throwing all in. So, the player has a very low score, the Games Master has 35, so the player fails. Because if we go on to resolving a feat, if the character's total is less than half of the feat's required level of total ability total, the attempt is a fumble. Fumbles are resolved by the host. If the character's total is less than the feat's required level of ability total, so we got the 35, the player got the 10, so it was less than half, so it's a fumble. But otherwise, its attempt is a failure. If it's equal or greater than the feat, then it's a partial success. If it's equal to or greater than half again of the feat, then it's a full success. And these all have different effects, especially in combat. Now, obviously, if two players are going against one another, or they're going up against an NPC, then they'll be using that skill. So if we flick back to this, if we were using Ada Lovelace, and it was her athletics, well, she's got average as well, so she'd be using just a 4 instead of the target number for the heroic feat, which was 6. And that player would be drawing their cards and using those against. And that's as simple as it is. You're adding up the cards and adding them too. If the card is of the same suite as the skill, then you're adding its full value. Everything else, you're just adding 1. But you might be wanting to keep cards back for future skill attempts. And so on to initiative. Well, initiative is based on your perception. If we go into the combat section on page 185, times and time in combat should be taken in order of highest to lowest perception ability. If equal, all actions are taken by mutual consent but are considered simultaneous. So, having a look at our characters, we have Abraham Lincoln. He has a perception of exceptional, and Lady Lovelace, we seem to have pitted these two together, her perception is good. So if we go back to the section, we can see exceptional is a 10 and good is 6. So the player playing Abraham Lincoln will go first, Ada Lovelace will go second. And so combat, well, it's just another contested skill test. So we're looking at contested skills, so let's have a look at the characters. Abraham Lincoln, his combat skill is fisticuffs, which he has at good, and he's going to decide to punch Lady Ada Lovelace. Don't know why he's being a cad, for some story reason. So she's going to be using her athletics to jump out of the way. That's your standard defense skill, your athletics, which she only has at average. So, looking back, we can see that his good already gets him a 6, and she only has a 4. Now, he needs to draw some cards. 4 cards. She needs to draw some cards. 4 cards. Now, he has a jack, so that is an 11, and 3 others. So he has a total of 14 there to add to his 6, so he has 20. But she has an ace, which is 14, plus 3 others, 17, plus her 4, so she has 21. So he fails by 1 point. Now what does that mean? So we carry on to the combat section, resolving combat. Now, if the attacker's total is less than half the defender's total, the attack is a fumble and causes no wounds. In fact, it might cause the attacker harm. So you draw a card from the main deck, and depending on whether it's a heart, the weapon harms the nearest friendly target. A diamond, the weapon malfunctions in some way, jams or mechanical weapons jam or break. Draw of a club means the weapon is dropped. Draw of a spade means it harms the attacker. Now, these are counted as partial attacks if they harm the person or a friend. But we also have, if the attacker's total is less than the defender's total, the attack fails and causes no wounds. So Abraham Lincoln actually failed to hit her, so it's just an ordinary fail. If it's equal to or greater than the defender's, it's a partial success. The attacker's total is equal to or greater than half again, it's a full success. And if the attacker's total is equal or greater than twice the defender's, the attack is a high success. Now this matters for damage, but basically if you get greater than the defender, then you've hit, and you'll do damage of differing levels. If you scored less, then you've missed, and if you scored them less than half, then you've fumbled, and you draw a card to see exactly what you've done, whether you've hurt a friend, whether you've dropped your weapon, whether you've broken it, etc. It's also worth bearing in mind that some weapons work in different ways. So we've got things like area effect weapons, where the attacker makes a single attack, and everybody has to make an athletics feat check against the marksmanship of the attacker to lower their damage or completely avoid it. Auto-fire weapons allow you to attack multiple targets, but you must make a separate attempt to hit for each target. So a Gatling gun, etc. allows you to attack up to 3 targets each turn. Now, as we said, damage is based on how well you did. So if you beat the target, then you're doing partial damage. If you beat them by half again, then you're doing full damage. And if you beat them by double, then you're doing high damage. And you're basically just selecting the weapon you're using. So we've got bows, carbines, derringers, etc. For ranged weapons. On the next page we've got dragon firecast ranges. And then we've got hand-to-hand weapons, which include blows. Because depending on how large the attacker's physique is, depends how much damage they're doing. So if you've got poor to average physique, then you're using this line, where you can actually do no damage at all. If you've got a good to great physique, using this line. If you're using an excellent to extreme physique, you're using this line. And that's all you're doing. You're seeing what level of attack you got, you're selecting what weapon you used, and that's how much damage you've done. It's a set amount. So you've received some points of damage, whether it's 1 or it's 3 or whatever. But what does that mean? Well, health is calculated, if we go on to page 188, by a combination of your physique and your courage, depending on the levels of both. So let's have a look at our NPCs. So Abraham Lincoln has a physique of great, but no courage skill. And Ada Lovelace has a physique of average, but again, no courage. Now, elsewhere in the rules, it states if you don't have an ability, you default to average, which makes me wonder why poor exists. Why is there a minimum? But anyway, using either one of those, Abraham Lincoln with his great physique and an average courage would have 7 health, or 6 health if we default to poor. And Ada Lovelace would have 5, or defaulting to poor would have 4. Now, there is no death in the game unless you want it to be. So being reduced to 0 health just puts you on the ground. And somebody who wants to kill you then has to state that they kill you. Now there's a rule here where the Games Master can draw a card, and if they draw a club from the deck, then that will kill you. But that is an extra rule. There's also other types of injuries here where we have swooning. That women, when somebody says extremely foul language to them, can swoon and take damage from it. Let's ignore those. Let's move on to healing, which based on what kind of damage you took. So if you took constitutional shocks, you heal 1 health every minute. If you took a blow, then you heal 1 health every hour. Treated wounds heal in days, untreated wounds in weeks, and wounds treated by sorcery heal in hours. And we've got health there for animals beneath that. But that's how it works. You calculate out your health and you can heal it back depending on what type of damage you took. An advancement in Castle Falkenstein is a rather lovely but weird system, where it is all done through roleplay. There are no you get experience points and spend them to increase skills and things. If we go back to page 164, we can see improving your lot, mastering and improving existing abilities, and it gives examples here. The player and the host could agree that if you fight a dozen duels with people who are at least one fencing rank above you, you will improve by 1 rank. So by practicing your skill, you increase it by learning. But it's an extremely long thing. If you exercise every day for 6 months, your physique will improve by a level or 2. Obviously, to get to the next level should require even more effort. So that's how it's done. You either, in play, are using your skill a lot, and you can go to the Games Master and say, I think that skill should have improved because I've been practicing it a lot, I've been going against people who are far better, I've been testing my skill against very difficult tasks, I've been climbing walls or whatever. So it should improve, and the Games Master may agree, or he may require you to carry on doing that for longer. Or you can write it into your character's story, that they are going to the gym and exercising, that they're going to the library and studying a subject, that they're going to a sorcerer and learning magic. And you can improve that way through your background story in time between adventures. And so that is Castle Falkenstein. It's a very interesting system. The cards don't make as much difference as they would normally. They're just a device for creating random numbers. If you're rolling 4d10 or whatever instead and allocating them out, it'd be pretty much the same system. The interest in the rules comes out from whether you spend your cards. If you're keeping that Queen of Diamonds aside for when you need it later, or whether you think you need every single point because you don't know what the Games Master's going to draw out of his deck of cards. Is he going to have high ones? So you need to use everything you've got. You've got to throw it in and make the best attempt possible. Or can you tactically keep a bit back because it will help you out in the future? Possibly, if you use a skill of that suit. Really interesting stuff. I like the role-playing advancement, that it's between the player and the Games Master, the host, to come up with how your character is improving, and it's for the player to be going forward in what they think their character should be getting better at, rather than the Games Master to be deciding that instead. Really interesting collaborative play creating the story of your character. But anyway, I think I've been wittering on for quite long enough as usual, so thank you very much for watching. But as always, most of all, you look after yourselves, and I'll catch you later. Bye now.